Three-year-old twins Emma and Ethan Hayes had not spoken a single word since the night their mother died. Not "Mama," not "Daddy," not even a startled cry when they fell and scraped their knees on the cold marble floors of their father's mansion. Jonathan Hayes, worth over $3 billion thanks to a medical technology empire built on giving other children a voice, stood in the grand hallway of his Charleston estate and listened to the loudest thing in the house. Nothing. 6 months earlier, Sarah Hayes had been killed in a brutal car crash. The twins had walked away without a scratch, yet it was as if the accident stole their voices and buried them somewhere no one could reach. The cruel irony followed Jonathan like a shadow. He'd built devices that let autistic children select words with their eyes. He created apps that turned gestures into sentences. His patents had been celebrated for ending silence, but his own children sat in silence, staring through him as if he were just another piece of expensive furniture. That morning, the pressure pushed through his front gates again. "Mr. Hayes," Mrs. Patterson said, crisp as a pressed bill, "your board is calling." Jonathan didn't answer. He stared past her at the playroom door. Emma sat cross-legged, clutching a tattered stuffed rabbit that still smelled faintly of Sarah's perfume. Ethan stood at the window, small hands pressed to the glass, eyes too old for his face. "They're children," Jonathan said finally, voice low. "Not headlines." Mrs. Patterson's mouth tightened. "And yet the world is watching." Jonathan's jaw flexed. "What else?" Mrs. Patterson hesitated, then forced herself to continue. "The nanny agency refused to send anyone new. They said your household is too heavy." Heavy, like grief had weight, and his children were carrying it on their backs. "And there's a woman from the downtown agency," Mrs. Patterson added. "She requested displacement." "Requested?" Jonathan scoffed. "Who requests this house?" "A cleaning girl," Mrs. Patterson said. "Maya Rodriguez, 23, no complaints." Jonathan rubbed his temples. "Fine, but she follows the rules." Mrs. Patterson nodded once. "No talking to the children, no interaction, no stepping into therapy, clean and leave." "The last thing they need," Jonathan said, voice sharpening, "is another stranger trying to help." Outside, Maya Rodriguez walked up the long driveway in second-hand sneakers, a plastic bucket of supplies in one hand and a folded list of instructions in the other. She moved quietly, like someone who learned early that noise could attract danger. At the iron gates, she stopped and looked at the mansion like it was a locked room with people trapped inside. In her pocket, a tiny metal key pressed against her fingertips. No one asked what it opened. Mrs. Patterson led her through rooms that looked staged for a magazine shoot. Crystal chandeliers, untouched sitting areas, portraits of Sarah that Jonathan hadn't removed, because removing them felt like admitting she would never walk back in. "Perfection," Mrs. Patterson said. "That's what Mr. Hayes expects." Maya nodded. "Yes, Mom." "And silence," Mrs. Patterson added, dropping her voice. "Absolute silence. You don't disturb him, and you don't disturb the children." As they neared the playroom, the air changed. Not colder, heavier. Maya slowed at the doorway. Inside, the twins sat like little statues. Emma hugged the rabbit so tight her knuckles were pale. Ethan stared upward, unblinking, as if he were waiting for something terrible to return. Maya's throat tightened with a recognition she didn't explain. On the rabbit's ear, a small stitched tag brushed her eye. There was writing on it, and it wasn't a brand name. "The children," Maya asked softly, careful not to step over the threshold, "do they ever—" Mrs. Patterson's eyes hardened. "That is not your concern." Maya lowered her gaze. "Understood. And one more thing," Mrs. Patterson said. "Do not try to be their friend. People come in here with big hearts and leave with broken ones." Maya's mouth barely moved. "Understood." Downstairs in the kitchen, the house staff had their own rules. The cook, Mr. Dillard, saw Maya's bucket and smirked. "New one, huh?" Maya nodded politely. "Yes, sir." He flicked his eyes toward the hallway. "You hear about the little ghosts yet?" Maya froze just a fraction. "I've been told to keep to my work." Mr. Dillard chuckled. "Smart. Don't go thinking you're some miracle worker. Harvard tried. Switzerland tried. Now it's your turn. Across the room, the driver leaned on the counter with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Bet you'll be gone by Friday. Maya tightened her grip on her bucket. I'm just here to clean. Ray shrugged. That's what they all say. Then they see the kids and start crying in the pantry. Mr. Dillard laughed. If you do, make sure you don't drip on the marble. They laughed like the silence upstairs was entertainment. Maya didn't laugh with them. She turned away and kept walking, face calm, heart beating too hard. Before Maya makes her first mistake in this mansion, and before you find out what's sewn into Sarah's old rabbit, please subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell, because the next few days will show you why healing never starts with a miracle. It starts with failure. Maya cleaned quietly and watched from a distance. She watched professionals arrive with bright voices and expensive toys, only to leave with tight smiles and quick footsteps. She watched caregivers speak to Emma and Ethan like they were fragile glass. She watched Jonathan pass the playroom doorway with his shoulders tense, as if stepping inside would shatter him. On Maya's second day, the first small crisis hit. Breakfast was served in perfect silence on perfect china. A nanny tried to place a spoon into Ethan's hand. He didn't take it. She tried again, brighter. Ethan, sweetheart, look, here's your oatmeal. Ethan's fingers curled tight, knuckles whitening, eyes fixed on the spoon like it was a threat. The nanny sighed and reached closer. Ethan's breathing changed. Fast, shallow. His shoulders rose. His whole body went rigid. Then, without a sound, he slipped in something like panic, hands clamped over his ears, head shaking, eyes wide and glassy, as if the room had become too loud, even though no one was speaking. The nanny looked helpless. Dr. Webb said he's fine. He's fine. Another nanny rushed in. Get Mr. Hayes. They hovered around Ethan, talking too fast, hands too busy, faces tense with fear. Ethan only got worse. Maya stood at the kitchen doorway, holding a tray of clean cups, watching. The rules rang in her head. No interaction. No stepping in. She stayed where she was, fingers numb around the porcelain. Ethan's eyes flicked to her for half a second, then away, like even looking at someone was dangerous. The nannies kept trying to fix him. Ethan kept shrinking. Finally, Jonathan arrived, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, eyes fierce with desperation. What happened? He demanded. He just started, the nanny stammered. We don't know. Jonathan dropped to one knee in front of Ethan. Son, look at me. Look at me. Ethan didn't. Jonathan's voice rose without meaning to. Ethan, please. Ethan flinched. Hard. Jonathan went still, horror flashing across his face as he realized his own panic was adding pressure like weight. Maya's throat closed. She wanted to hum. She wanted to soften the air. Instead, she backed away, because she was the cleaning girl, and this was not her place. By the time Ethan's breathing finally slowed, more from exhaustion than comfort, Maya's hands were shaking behind her apron. That night, she cried in the laundry room with the washing machine running, so no one would hear. Not loud sobs. Small, silent tears. The kind you swallow when you've learned the world doesn't stop for your pain. She stared at the basket of tiny socks and thought, I can't do this. The next morning, she almost didn't return. In the driveway, Ray the driver smirked as he opened the trunk of a delivery car. Still here? Maya walked past him. Yes. He nodded toward the mansion. How long you think before you start believing you can fix him? I don't believe that, Maya said. Ray snorted. Sure. Inside, Mr. Dillard called out without looking up from the stove. Hey, miracle girl, any words yet? Maya kept walking. Behind her, laughter followed. Upstairs, another micro-crisis arrived before lunch. Emma had a cup of juice placed beside her. The nanny's sleeve brushed a plate. The plate clinked too sharply against the china. It wasn't even loud, but Emma jolted like lightning struck. Her eyes blew wide. Her fingers dug into the rabbit's fur. The nanny tried to soothe her. It's okay, Emma. It's okay. Emma's small body trembled. Her breath hitched. Her mouth opened as if a cry might come. Then she slammed it shut. She turned inward, folding into herself, rabbit pressed to her chest like armor. The nanny's face tightened with frustration. Emma, don't do this again. Maya was dusting in the hallway. She watched the nanny's irritation pour into the room like smoke. Emma's shoulders climbed higher. Maya didn't step in. But later, when the hallway was empty and the playroom door stood slightly ajar, Maya did something small. She didn't enter. She didn't speak. She simply paused outside the doorway and let a soft hum slip through her lips. One thin thread of sound offered without demand. For a moment, nothing changed. Then Emma's shoulders dropped a fraction, like a knot loosening. Maya's heart lifted, and then it crashed. Mrs. Patterson appeared behind her like a shadow. "What do you think you're doing?" Mrs. Patterson hissed. Maya stopped humming immediately. "I'm sorry, I wasn't." "You were," Mrs. Patterson snapped. "You were told, no interaction." "I didn't touch them," Maya pleaded softly. "I didn't even enter." Mrs. Patterson's eyes were ice. "Do you want to be fired?" Maya swallowed. "No, ma'am." "Then remember your place." Maya nodded, jaw tight, and walked away before her face betrayed her. In her supply closet later, she gripped the edge of the shelf until her knuckles hurt. She wanted to quit. She wanted to run. But something inside her wouldn't let her leave two silent children in a house full of noise that didn't sound like love. On the fourth day, the antagonist didn't arrive in an envelope. He arrived in person. A black sedan rolled up to the mansion. A man stepped out in a tailored suit, carrying a leather folder like a weapon. Mrs. Patterson ushered him inside with nervous respect. "Mr. Langford," she said, voice strained. Jonathan met him in the foyer, expression guarded. "You didn't call." Mr. Langford smiled thinly. "I'm here because you won't answer the calls." He glanced past Jonathan, eyes scanning the house like it was an inspection site. "You're not my doctor," Jonathan said. "No," Langford replied. "I'm your board." Jonathan's jaw flexed. "Say what you came to say." Langford opened his folder. "We're concerned about your judgment." Jonathan laughed once, bitter. "Because my children stopped speaking after their mother died." Langford's eyes didn't soften. "Because staff turnover is skyrocketing. Because the media is sniffing around. Because your home has become a liability." Jonathan's fingers curled into a fist. "My children are not a liability." Langford tilted his head. "They may be, if you can't provide appropriate care." At that phrase, appropriate care, Jonathan felt his stomach drop. Langford continued, voice calm, cruelly reasonable. "There are specialized residential programs, facilities designed for cases like this." Jonathan went still. "You're suggesting I put them in an institution?" "I'm suggesting you stop letting your grief cloud your decisions," Langford said. "A controlled environment, consistent staff, a team, and..." His gaze flicked toward the hallway, not a rotating cast of maids and nannies trying to improvise therapy. Maya, carrying a basket of towels, froze halfway down the hall. Langford noticed her and didn't bother lowering his voice. "Is that one of them?" he asked Jonathan. "The cleaning girl." Maya's cheeks heated. Jonathan stepped forward. "Leave her out of this." Langford's mouth curved. "Jonathan, don't be ridiculous. If your children remain nonverbal, if your household can't demonstrate stability, it becomes a governance issue." Jonathan's voice cracked with fury. "Governance? These are my babies." Langford's eyes stayed cold. "And if you can't keep them safe, someone will argue you don't deserve custody." The word custody hit Jonathan like a punch. For a second, he couldn't breathe. Behind the playroom door, there was a soft thud, like a small body pressing against wood. Jonathan's gaze snapped toward it. Ethan stood just inside the doorway, fingers clamped over his ears, eyes huge. He was listening. He was hearing every word about being taken away. Jonathan's knees went weak. Langford saw Ethan and spoke as if the child wasn't even human. "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about." Jonathan's hands shook. He took one step toward the playroom, then stopped, afraid to startle Ethan. Langford closed his folder. "You have 2 weeks to present a plan." Jonathan turned back, voice trembling with contained violence. Get out of my house. Langford smiled as he walked away. 2 weeks, Jonathan. When the door shut, Jonathan stood motionless in the foyer like someone had cut his strings. Mrs. Patterson whispered, "Mr. Hayes." Jonathan didn't hear her. All he could see was Ethan's face. All he could think was, "They will take my children." In the kitchen, Mr. Dillard muttered loud enough for Maya to hear. "Told you, this place is cursed." Ray added, smirking, "Maybe they should ship the kids off. Would make everyone's life easier." Maya spun toward them, eyes blazing. "Don't." They both blinked, surprised the quiet cleaning girl had teeth. Mr. Dillard lifted his hands. "Relax. It's not personal." Maya's voice was low and sharp. "It's always personal when you talk about children like they're problems." Ray scoffed. "You're getting attached. That's your mistake." Maya turned away before her face broke. Upstairs, in the hallway outside the playroom, she leaned against the wall and finally let herself feel it. Fear. Not for her job. For Emma and Ethan. Because now the stakes weren't just their voices. It was whether they'd even be allowed to stay home. That afternoon, Jonathan made a decision out of desperation. He stormed into the playroom. Not with a plan. With panic. The twins flinched at his energy before he even spoke. Jonathan forced his voice soft. "You heard that man? You heard him talk about taking you away." Emma's eyes widened. Her grip on the rabbit tightened. Ethan's hands rose toward his ears again. Jonathan's chest tightened. "No one is taking you," he said. But the words came out like a plea, not a promise. His voice lifted without meaning to. "Do you understand me?" The twins went rigid. Jonathan froze, seeing the damage he'd just done. He backed away, throat burning, and left the room like a man fleeing a fire. Maya watched from the hallway, unseen. She wanted to reach for him. But the rules were the rules. And in this house, rules were louder than love. Then on the 5th morning, the smallest thing became the biggest. Emma's rabbit slipped from her arms and rolled under a heavy mahogany bookshelf. Emma froze. Her face crumpled. Tears streamed silently as she stretched, reaching farther and farther, fingers trembling just short of the toy. A nanny walked past, eyes on her phone. A cook passed with a tray, focused on the schedule. No one saw the emergency playing out in silence. Maya did. She set down her duster, stepped into the playroom, and knelt beside Emma with movements so gentle they barely stirred the air. Without a word, she reached under the bookshelf and retrieved the rabbit. Emma stared at her as if she'd just witnessed a magic trick. Maya handed it back and whispered in Spanish, soft as a blanket. "Aquí está tu conejito." Emma's tiny fingers closed around the rabbit like it was oxygen. For the first time, her eyes focused fully on another human face. A flicker, almost a smile, crossed her lips. Across the room, Ethan took one careful step forward, then another. He watched Maya like she just opened a door he'd forgotten existed. Maya's heart lifted, and immediately fear chased it, because she knew what came next. When grown-ups saw hope, they squeezed it. That night, Maya stayed late to deep clean the playroom. The twins were supposed to be asleep, but when she passed their bedrooms, she saw 2 small faces watching from the shadow. Not frightened, curious. Maya didn't enter. She didn't announce herself. She simply began to work, humming a soft lullaby under her breath. It wasn't a performance. It was a habit. A melody her grandmother used to hum when the world felt unsafe. Ethan leaned into his doorway, head tilted, listening like a starving child hearing music for the first time. Emma hugged the rabbit and watched Maya's mouth as if studying how sound formed. Maya kept humming, then tried something else, something tiny. She placed 2 small toy blocks on the floor, not in front of them, but near herself. She stacked one block on the other. Then she knocked it over. A gentle, quiet topple. No sudden clatter. No bright look at me. Just a soft invitation. Ethan didn't move. Emma didn't move. Maya's throat tightened with disappointment. She built it again. Knocked it again. Nothing. She swallowed hard and kept cleaning, humming as if it didn't hurt. Because it did. It hurt more than she expected. In the laundry room afterward, she pressed her forehead against the cool cabinet and whispered to herself, Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just want to save them because I couldn't save myself. Her fingers brushed the tiny metal key in her pocket, grounding her. Then the playroom door slammed open. Jonathan Hayes stood there, face tight with rage and fear. "What are you doing?" he snapped. "You were told not to interact with them." Maya straightened slowly, hands open. "I'm cleaning, Mr. Hayes." "You're humming," Jonathan said, voice shaking. "You're talking, you're confusing them." "I'm not asking them for anything," Maya said quietly. "I'm just being here." Jonathan's eyes flashed. "You've been here days. Don't pretend you understand my children." Maya's chest rose and fell. "I understand what fear does." Jonathan laughed once, sharp. "Fear? You think I don't know fear? A man came into my house today and talked about taking my children away." Maya's eyes softened. "I know. Oh." Jonathan's voice broke into anger again. "Then you know why I can't afford this. Any sign of instability and they'll use it against you," Maya finished softly. Jonathan went still. Maya looked toward the twins. "When you come in like a storm, they feel it. They fold tighter." Jonathan's jaw clenched. "So what? I'm supposed to sit on the rug and smile while my life collapses?" Maya's throat tightened. "No, you're supposed to breathe so they can breathe." Jonathan stared at her, furious, exhausted, defeated. Then he heard it. A sound. So small he almost missed it. Emma made a soft, deliberate hum. Not a reflex. A choice. Both adults froze. Emma looked at Maya and hummed again, like she was calling the lullaby back into the room. Jonathan's eyes widened. Did she just? Ethan's lips parted. A breathy ah slipped out, fragile but intentional. Jonathan's knees went weak. Maya sank to her knees slowly, careful, like she was approaching a wild animal that might bolt. "That's it," she whispered. "It's still there." Jonathan's voice cracked. "How?" Maya swallowed. "Because I'm not afraid of their silence." Jonathan stared. "Why?" Maya's fingers drifted without thinking to the inside of her wrist, where a faint burn scar lived under her sleeve. "Because I've been inside it," she whispered. Jonathan blinked. "What do you mean?" Maya's eyes stayed on the children. "When I was little, my home burned. I watched the people I loved disappear." Her voice trembled, but she didn't run from it. "And I stopped speaking for a long time, not because I couldn't, because my voice felt dangerous." Jonathan's face changed, rage draining out, replaced by shock. Emma hummed again, then shaped the sound into something clearer, trembling with courage. "Maya." The word landed like a miracle. Ethan blinked, then whispered, "Maya, here." Jonathan covered his mouth with his hand, tears spilling before he could stop them. The mansion, for the first time in months, held something other than emptiness. Before you see what Jonathan does after hearing his children speak for the first time, and why the board member's threat forces him into the hardest choice of his life, please subscribe, because what happens next isn't just healing, it's survival. The next morning, Jonathan asked Maya to meet him in his office. Awards lined the shelves like armor. Patents framed on the wall. Photos of him shaking hands with powerful people, all taken before his eyes lost their light. Maya stood by the chair, ready to be fired. Jonathan didn't sit behind his desk. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, like a man who had finally set down a heavy load. "Tell me the truth," he said. "Who are you?" Maya took a breath. "I grew up in Riverside Projects. My parents died in a house fire when I was 4. Jonathan's eyes stayed on hers. "And you stopped speaking?" "Yes," Maya said. "For years." He swallowed hard. "No one told me that." "No one asked," Maya replied gently. Jonathan's hands trembled. "All this time, I've been trying to buy their words back." Maya nodded slowly. "'Cause you're a man who fixes things, and grief is the one thing that won't follow a blueprint." Jonathan looked away, eyes wet. When Manfred said he could push custody questions, Maya's stomach tightened. "Then you need stability." "I don't know how," Jonathan admitted. Maya's voice softened. "Permission." "Permission for what?" "Permission to stop treating every silent day like a failure," Maya said. "Consistency, safety, no storms." Jonathan swallowed. "And if they go silent again?" They will, Maya said gently. Sometimes healing steps backward. The difference is what you do in that silence. Jonathan's throat worked. What do I do? Maya leaned forward slightly. You stay. That afternoon, Jonathan sat on the playroom rug. He didn't beg. He didn't test. He didn't perform. He simply sat there, breathing like a lighthouse, steady and boring and safe. Emma watched him with the rabbit in her lap. Ethan watched Jonathan's hands, as if deciding whether they were safe. Maya hummed quietly in the background and whispered one sentence, meant for Jonathan as much as for the children. Silence isn't always a wall, she said. Sometimes it's a shelter. The progress wasn't pretty. Some days Emma hummed once, then locked up for hours. Some days Ethan whispered a sound, then panicked when he realized he'd made it. Maya's first plan failed 3 times. She tried a gentle game with blocks. Ethan froze and wouldn't cross the room. She tried leaving paper and crayons. Emma pushed them away like they were foreign objects. She tried a soft story in Spanish. The twins stared blankly, and Maya's heart sank so low she had to excuse herself to the bathroom to breathe. In the mirror, she stared at her own face and whispered, "Don't be arrogant. You don't get to demand a miracle." Downstairs, the stuff kept making it worse. Mr. Dillard saw Maya exit the hallway one evening with red eyes and smirked. "Oh, didn't work, huh?" Ray chimed in. "Guess the magic humming didn't do it." Maya's voice was quiet, but sharp. "You're enjoying this?" Ray shrugged. "I'm being realistic." Mr. Dillard snorted. "The billionaire's kids are broken. It is what it is." Maya stepped closer, eyes hard. "They're not broken. They're scared." Mr. Dillard rolled his eyes. "Sure. And you're what? Their savior?" Maya held his gaze. "No, I'm the first adult in this house who isn't treating their silence like a disease." Ray laughed. "You talk like your family." Maya's jaw clenched. "I talk like someone who's seen what happens when people give up on kids." That night, Maya almost quit again. Not because the staff mocked her, because she felt hope, and hope is dangerous when you've lost people before. She sat on the floor of her tiny rented room, key in her palm, and called her grandma. Rosa's voice came through warm and tired. "Machita?" Maya swallowed hard. "Abuela, I don't think I can do it." Rosa didn't argue. She didn't lecture. She hummed softly through the phone for a moment, the same lullaby that carried Maya through her own silence. Then she spoke, gentle as hands. "Los niños heridos necesitan tiempo, no palabras." Maya closed her eyes. "Time. And someone who doesn't run," Rosa added. The next day, the board pressure escalated. Langford returned, this time with a woman from legal and a man with a clipboard who called himself a family services consultant. Jonathan met them in the foyer like a guard dog protecting a den. "We're not doing this again," Jonathan said. Langford smiled. "We're doing it until you listen." The consultant's eyes flicked around the house. "We need to see the children's environment." Jonathan's voice went icy. "No, Chaisonis." Langford's tone sharpened. "Then we document refusal." Jonathan's hands shook. "Get out." The legal woman spoke calmly. "Mr. Hayes, you understand we're obligated to report risk." Jonathan's chest tightened. "Risk? Their mother died." Langford stepped closer. "And your children became nonverbal. And now you're employing—" His gaze flicked toward Maya, who had paused at the stairs. "A cleaning girl as emotional support." Maya's face heated. Jonathan snapped. "Leave her out of this." Langford lifted a brow. "Or what? You'll fire the board?" Jonathan's voice cracked with rage. "I'll burn the company to the ground before I give my children to strangers." Behind the playroom door, a small thud again. "Emma, dort." Ethan Dow. "Listening, Tibo. Way." Jonathan swallowed, forced his voice lower, forced his body to soften because his children were absorbing everything. Maya saw it. He was trying. Langford watched Jonathan's restraint and smiled like he'd found a weakness. 2 weeks, he repeated. "Present a plan, or we present ours." When they left, Jonathan leaned against the wall like his bones had turned to sand. Maya approached slowly. "Mr. Hayes." Jonathan's eyes were red. I built a company that helps people communicate, he whispered. And now I can't even communicate that my children belong with me. Maya's throat tightened. You can. How? Jonathan pleaded. Maya glanced toward the playroom. By being the safest thing in the world. Every day, even when you're scared. That evening, Ethan went into another silent panic. It started when a car door slammed outside. Ethan jolted, hands up, breathing fast. A nanny rushed in too quickly. Ethan. Ethan recoiled, eyes wild. Jonathan entered, face tense. Maya saw the old storm rising in him. She stepped into the doorway, not touching, not grabbing, just there. Jonathan's eyes flicked to her. Maya lowered her own shoulders and breathed visibly, like demonstrating calm. Jonathan copied it without speaking. He sat on the rug. He didn't talk. He didn't plead. He breathed. Ethan's eyes locked onto his father's chest, rising and falling. Slowly, Ethan's hands lowered. Not fully, but enough. It wasn't a miracle. It was a crack in the wall. By late October, the house began to change in small, stubborn ways. Emma's hums returned more often. Ethan began whispering, when Maya hummed, like he was daring the sound to exist. And then one afternoon, sunlight poured across the playroom floor like gold paint. Maya scattered autumn leaves on the rug and let the twins sort them by color. Emma held a deep red maple leaf and stared at it as if it contained a secret. Then she looked up. Daddy, she said, voice trembling but clear. Jonathan's whole body jolted. He didn't move. He barely breathed. Ethan pointed at the leaves and added, Pretty. Jonathan's eyes filled instantly. Emma's gaze slid to his face where tears gathered again. Daddy, cry, she said, reaching up and touching his cheek with the gentlest hand. Ethan stepped closer, bold now. Daddy, stay. Jonathan pulled both children into his arms, and the sound that filled the mansion wasn't silence anymore. It was a man finally letting himself grieve, out loud. A week later, Jonathan noticed the rabbit's ear tag again. He'd seen it before, but he'd been too shattered to look closely. Now his fingers trembled as he turned it over. Sarah had embroidered words into the fabric with uneven stitches, like she'd done it quickly, like she'd known someday it would matter. If you ever go quiet, my loves, I will still hear you. Jonathan pressed the rabbit to his forehead and whispered, I hear you, Sarah. Downstairs, something else shifted. Mr. Dillard stopped making jokes. One morning, he set a small plate of cut fruit near Emma and muttered, almost embarrassed, It's easier to hold when it's small. Emma looked at the fruit. Then softly she said, Thank you. Mr. Dillard froze like he'd been struck. He turned away too fast, pretending to adjust a pot on the stove. Ray the driver stopped smirking too. One afternoon he saw Ethan watching the driveway and said, Carefully, want to see the car? Ethan didn't answer, but he took one small step forward. Ray's voice went quiet. Okay, another time. Even the house learned. Slow, clumsy, but learning. Jonathan made a decision that surprised everyone who knew him. He stopped treating grief like a private problem to hide behind gates. He turned one of his unused properties downtown into a place where grieving families could walk in without fear of judgment, invoices, or timelines. A place where silence wasn't punished. A place where children could be held through the quiet until they were ready to speak. He named it after the person who should have been there to see it. The Sarah Hayes Foundation for Childhood Trauma. Langford tried to fight it. He argued it was bad optics. Jonathan looked him in the eye and said, My children's healing isn't optics. Then he did something Langford didn't expect. He invited the board to visit the foundation opening, in public, with cameras. He made it clear, if they wanted to remove him, they'd have to explain why they were attacking a free trauma program. Langford didn't show, but he stopped calling. Maya didn't call herself a doctor. She didn't pretend she had all the answers. But she trained volunteers and caregivers to do one thing that cost nothing and changed everything. To listen. And on the days when a new child arrived, clutching a toy like it was the last safe thing in the world, Emma would kneel down beside them and whisper in Spanish, the way Maya once whispered to her. Aquí está tu conejito, you're safe. The mansion that once felt like a tomb now echoed with footsteps, stories, and the messy, beautiful noise of a family learning how to live again. And Jonathan, billionaire inventor, problem solver, man who used to believe every silence could be conquered, finally understood the truth Sarah had stitched into that rabbit. Some songs are worth waiting for. How would you rate this story out of 10? We are curious about your opinion. And if you have any suggestions, share them with us in the comments. Like every YouTube channel, our channel needs support. If you want to support us, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Thank you in advance for your support. Disclaimer: this is a dramatization inspired by real events and real people. Some details have been changed. This is not medical or legal advice.